Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at the Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network.
And I'm Pete Wright. Welcome to the Iron Man Acura chat.
Today, we're talking about minute 132, which begins with the Tesseract being dealt with and ends with Fury's dramatic walk. Back on the show, we have MarvelousTay from TwitchTV. Hey, Taylor.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I am great, and I'm thrilled to be talking about this minute with you. Should be a fun conversation.
That's going to be a good one.
My first question for you, though, what is it that drew you to pick this minute?
That hunky Powers booth. Please tell me it's Powers booth.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the reason why I picked this minute was I like to ask the question, what if? What if Thor didn't take Loki? And I like to expand that because I feel like that was one of the worst mistakes they could have done because Thor has a very soft spot for his brother, as we see in the next movie. And also now seeing She-Hulk, I like this minute because we finally see a friendship between Tony and Bruce. Was the start of the friendship. I think that's really what pulled me more.
Yeah, we had that fantastic scientist meet cute back on the helicarrier, and it's kind of it was so cute to see him get in the car with Tony. I'm like, oh.
Like they're besties.
They're scientist besties.
So adorable. They're besties now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really very mean girl, get in the car, we're going shopping.
So there are two directions for this conversation. We have everything going on here in Central Park, and then we also have everything going on because this scene we're intercutting with with Nick Fury talking to the World Security Council. So I don't know. Which one do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about what the conversation Fury's having, or everything here at Bethesda Terrace?
I think I want to talk about the Tesseract because I like the one split second. It's right there in the beginning. You see Steve really staring down that Tesseract like a hawk. And I feel because of the look that he gives, I don't know if he really feels comfortable that it is going back to Thor. I think there's a little sense of uncertain. I don't know what word I want to use, but I don't know. I just, that face when I was watching this, I'm like, there's something he's thinking behind his head. There's, the ears are starting to burn. The wheels are turning. I wonder what he's thinking. That's
a really interesting note because he is the person who was around when the Tesseract was first. It had been on Midgard for quite some time, but really it was because of Red Skull and everything that Johann Schmidt did back in World War II when he was around and really kind of that was the thing that kind of gave his enemy at the time so much power, and he thought it was gone. It had come back, and now he's thinking it's going again, and it does make you wonder if he's looking at that thinking, is this the last time I'm seeing this, or am I going to have to deal with this again at some point?
It's that, and also, I don't think he trusts anyone anymore when it comes to that. I think he's still, after what he saw in the helicopter, I feel like he's still uncertain with S.H.I.E.L.D. down. He's a little on edge, and I don't think he really knows who to trust. I think he's kind of put off guard because whenever that little glowy block of goodness is around him, there's something always bad behind it.
Yeah, I think that's it too. I think he's probably thinking nobody's ever going to be able to keep their hands on this. This is a mistake. But it's a mistake with what is the answer? What do you keep it here? Where are you going to put it where it isn't going to be a problem? That ends up being sort of the unifying question of the entire Infinity Saga is how do you keep these things off of that guy's hand?
All right. What would you do?
Yeah, no, I don't know. That's the question, right? I don't think there's an answer. But that's what Cap is wrestling with, right? This is a thing that has caused problem now for, I don't know, have you seen how many movies we've had to make about it?
Yeah.
We're just getting started.
Yeah.
The best thing you do is destroy it. But the question is, how would you do it? Because they'll never figure it out.
Right.
Well, and that's interesting because we don't know exactly what this device is that they have put it into, but clearly it's something that I don't know. I'm assuming Erik had just had in his spare time. He's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to make something else while I'm, while I've got my downtime. I'm going to come up with something that is like a personal,
Asgardian carryout container,
right? A personal transport device that you could use with the Tesseract when you don't want to create the blue beam, but you do want to ride the blue beam and take it somewhere, And it was such a funny thing when I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, so Erik had been so busy with all of this. Where does this thing come from? I don't know, but clearly he had enough spare time and spare parts to just kind of throw this together too.
As long as we're talking about things that Erik threw together, can we talk about this prototype of the Dyson personal air purifier that Loki's wearing? That thing is amazing, and it's especially amazing that this is so attuned to a product that exists right now that I die every time I see it. The Dyson Zone is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, and Loki is wearing an early one right now. It's too funny. I have to call that out.
That's hilarious. I haven't
Have you
seen those. Oh, I'm looking at images of them right now.
Yeah.
It's funny. They look like they've designed them to look like they came from a movie like this.
I know. I know this. It's so dumb.
Well, I mean, why is Loki in a mouth guard to begin with? I mean, it's not like he's Hannibal Lecter who eats people
because of the power of words.
Well, is it the power of words? Because it's not like he casts spells either. Like if this was,
he's an incredible speaker, Andy, and they're afraid he will be able to just convince people to sway his way.
Yeah. I like to think that it was just Thor who's just like, I'm so sick of hearing his voice. Can we just put something over his mouth? So I don't want to have to hear him.
This is Asgardian tape.
I think for Thor, he had enough hearing his brother mouth away this entire time and just needs a good, peaceful way to go back to Asgard without hearing his brother being all Mr. Smarty Pants and, all right, you want me this time, but,
Right.
Yeah, no, I think he just wanted him to be a little quiet. Just a little longer.
Yeah, it's very funny. It's one of these things where the whole thing, when you look at it, it's like, I wonder why they're doing that. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, you don't worry about it because you just imagine in the scope of catching a villain, it's just one of those things that they add just to make him look even more caught.
Mm-hmm. He's extra caught.
Extra caught.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it makes me think almost like a dog with those little mouthpieces. That's the first thing I think of with him.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those muzzles.
Muzzles.
Muzzle. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Right. The Tesseract, jumping back to that real quick, it is in this briefcase. At the very beginning of this minute, when we see the briefcase that Tony has the Tesseract in, he opens it up and we see, then it kind of cuts to, Bruce having taken it out with some special, I'm sure they're tongs that Erik also devised. They're just super fancy tongs, basically. And he puts it into this container. But that briefcase, there's a little story behind this. This is a Rimowa GmbH. It is a German manufacturer that makes these incredibly fancy briefcases. And this particular briefcase, the modern, the up-to-date, 2023 version, this attaché case is $2,125. So they're not cheap briefcases,
and they don't even use it.
Well, it's a similar briefcase that Fury had it in at the end of Thor. So it's kind of one of these things that they kind of consistently kind of keep using. Because of that, the Marvel Disney company decided when they were going to release a special package of the entire Phase 1 on Blu-ray and DVD, it was called the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 1 Avengers Assembled Collection. They were going to release this in, I believe, spring 2013, or actually late fall 2013. The company sued Marvel because this is the briefcase company. They sued Marvel because they said that you're using it in a way where it's you're stealing the design and it doesn't speak to the quality that we imbue in our briefcases. It was enough to delay the release of this box set from fall 2012 to spring 2013. And from what I can tell, they did end up finally coming to an agreement to release this package, but they did have to alter its design so it didn't necessarily look like one of these Rimowa attaché cases. But it was quite the drama. Like, there were stories in the Hollywood Reporter and Variety about this whole lawsuit that had been happening because of this whole thing. So it's funny little things like this can end up causing such headaches for studios that are trying to release something that looks cool.
I know it's headaches for us as Marvel fans to get that little thing. I was fighting tooth and nail, and I still failed every time.
Well, and it looks like you can still get it, but, typically when these things are released and then are only released for a limited time, now if you want to buy it, it's $425. So,
wow.
A little pricey.
So, yeah.
A little pricey.
Yeah. And now I'm crying, so thank you.
Well, what are you going to do? We get the final moments of this, Thor and Loki, again, the funky device design. They turn the handle, and
what does it do? Does it unleash the Tesseract juice on them, and then they're able to, because that's kind of what it's looking like.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what Loki tried to do with the Tesseract at Stark's Towers. This one's a little bit more contained and not opening up a portal. It just teleports them. Versus what they had a machine, they're opening different worlds at one time. This is just little like Star Trek teleporter.
Yeah, they get to ride the pew-pew juice all the way to Asgard. Yeah.
But I do have to say with this one scene, I do love the little side eye that Loki gives to Black Widow and Hawkeye as he watches them as she goes over there and whispers to Hawkeye a little gossip, little juicy tea, and Hawkeye just smirks a little bit. I wonder what she told him to make him smile.
What makes Clint smile?
I was like, I really want to know what she's whispering. I think it's the most cutest little scene, and I think makes Loki kind of really get frustrated because he always wants to know what everyone says about him. He wants to know, and I think that's a little cute little touch in my mind.
It's a great play that the two of them do, considering they've both, he was mind controlled by Loki for the bulk of the film. She had that confrontation with him in his holding cell, and this is that moment to kind of, for them to show Loki that, we got you, we have it up on you, and they're making fun of him. And it's just that smirk that Clint gives right at the end of that beat. It's perfect. It's so emblematic of everything they've gone through and exactly how they feel about Loki. It plays really well.
Oh, it's perfect. I loved it.
The other thing that I thought was interesting is Loki is caught, but is still acknowledging there is this willingness he has as Thor, his brother, holds out the other end, and Loki, it's like he knows he's just going to have to go along with this, and he actually willingly takes the handle and holds it with Thor so that they can be whisked off to Asgard. It's it's a nice little beat there.
In the spirit of live to fight another day,
yes.
Right? You just know something's happening.
Yeah, I love that beat. And then, they are off to Asgard, and at this point, all of our heroes depart. They go their separate ways, but we know that they will all come back to unite again as needed, as does Fury. We see, Tony and Steve shake hands, which is a nice beat because Tony had been so, kind of poking at Steve so often through the film. But it's a nice little moment that the two of them share.
And do we get to talk about the car?
I was going to wait till it drives away, but yeah, we get the fantastic car here.
I love this car. This is a car that does not exist. It was just right before the movie was released. The Acura had unveiled an updated concept of the NSX, Honda's NSX, and they hadn't talked about making it into a revitalized supercar at that point. And so, knowing the agreement that they had with Marvel, there was a lot of speculation. What this car really is underneath is an Acura NSX, but it's a 1991 with 252,000 miles on it that was purchased by the body shop for $18,000. And it was previously a private owned NSX coupe from Arizona. They bought the car. They put a lot of foam on it. A guy named Dave Merrick, who runs the shop that was contracted to do it, ended up refabricating a lot of the panels on the front from fiberglass. The car still has its 270 horsepower, 3-liter V6 engine, completely untouched, other than being limited to 30 miles per hour. Anything over that, the fiberglass all rips off. So it is a lovely homage to the NSX, and the NSX line is still around today as sort of their entry into the supercar market. But it is this was the car I wanted them to make. This coupe is beautiful, and it never quite got there. Close, but never quite there.
Did it finally come out? I feel like it was one of those things. There's a version of it that came out in
2015.
Yeah, and then like because I think you can get it now.
Well, you can get the NSX. You can't get the Iron Man NSX. That's what I'm talking about. The car that they made for this is just, the lines are slightly different, right? By the time it hit 2015, it was its own design. This exact model was never made. And that's what I'm saying. And it's really lovely. The color is lovely. It's a custom color. You could never get this color, this kind of purple red. So it's a neat car.
Well, the Marvel Wiki calls it the NSX Spider.
Well, and there's a Spider model of the NSX. There's absolutely a Spider model, but this one, my research is coming from the shop that made the car, and Dave Merrick calls it the Iron Man NSX.
Gotcha.
And that's the unique mark of this particular handcrafted version of this car.
So in the Marvel conspiracy theories, which I live in, I have a nice room in Madison Sea there. People always thought that was the Spider. And it's funny, if you go watch past Avengers movies, the Spider Iron suit has the exact same color or clothes to that car.
That's awesome.
So I don't know if that's also another, like, hey, fair warning, another Easter egg. But once again, sometimes I overthink a little bit too much. But that's been a huge talk in my realm, as was this a little hint that Spider-Man's coming.
Yeah, right.
Who knows? And it so happens Tony's driving that car, and the color of the suit is kind of close.
It's getting there.
Yeah, that's funny.
The license plate is Stark 33, which is just always fun to track. I don't know if this is his 33rd car. I would imagine he has a lot more than that, but that's a fun little note. We get Steve driving away on his Harley. It's a 2012 Harley-Davidson Softail Slim that he is riding as he takes off. And, of course, Bruce, as we said earlier in the show, he goes off with his new best science buddy, Tony. And then we get Nat and Clint taking off in the matte black Shield mobile, which is...
that I don't have any information on.
It's like, okay. I guess it looks like a Shield car. Yeah. It's funny, like...
I think it's a Taurus with matte paint job with, like, vinyl on it.
Yeah, in the scope of...
Probably a Honda. In
the scope of Shield, though, it's like they... obviously, it's an organization that is not like a secret organization. I mean, they've got it branded on the side. The public's going to be able to see it and everything, so...
Why do they do that? That is like the worst paint job. Like Shield has their awesome logo, and then they put this like stencil paint on their cars. That is so dumb.
That is a good question. Who knows? As Tony drives away, you actually get a shot as they leave the terrace here. You can see some Shield agents standing at the end of it, kind of blocking either end, which is just a nice little note to recognize that, again, why are they not doing all of this at Stark Tower where everybody was? Who knows? They came all the way up to Central Park. But it is nice to see how they are still kind of, there is this team element with Shield that's kind of like holding this area as kind of a safety area that they can operate in without people coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it was the Acura, like the SUVs, the MDX, the car. What would the car be? It was... the standby, it's coming. Matte vinyl treatment on the looks
Acura,
like
is it the Acura TL? Looks like.
Yeah. That's it. Got there.
There it is. Yep. Okay, well, that pretty much is the end as our heroes all depart. Let's shift our conversation and go back to, we've been listening to Nick Fury talking to the World Security Council, specifically Gideon Malik and Pamela Hawley are the two specific ones he's largely talking to over the course of this. But yeah, there's kind of this is a conversation that started in our last minute, but we're coming in on the last half of it. Thoughts on this conversation and kind of where it's taking us, Taylor?
The World Security Council always wanted that sense of control. They are security. They want to have power. Obviously, we learn later on in Captain America, we see why they want it, but they kind of get put off guard thinking like Nick Fury is definitely with them on their side. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I let them loose. They're on, doing daycare, play dates, they're out there having fun. They're like, oh, what? And I think that's what really freaked them. I think that's like, with their dialogue, I feel like they are now have to question now Nick Fury. They thought they had him. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that more of Pamela is definitely way more aggressively concerned and how much she believes that they are a threat. This conversation, I think, is what sparked, what was it called? Project Insight. I think is what made them have like a backup plan to have, once again, that sense of control. Hence why Project Insight.
And it's nice to get the sense, I mean, we don't get that here, but certainly by the time we get to Winter Soldier, the fact that Pamela Hawley is not one of the, she hasn't been turned by Hydra, right? Like, as we kind of find out in that one toward the end when we have Natasha kind of posing as her, there's that whole bit where we get a sense that she's actually one of the good people. So, but it's interesting because here the World Security Council kind of still has this dark, shadowy organization. Do I trust these people? What's their goal? And it is this sense of power that they have here. They're kind of judging Fury for having let Loki go, and they have no control over all that. And they've let these Avengers loose, and they don't know, they're not even tracking them. They don't know where they are. It's an interesting conversation that really speaks to the people in power want to maintain control at all costs. And it's like this balancing act between them wanting to control everything and Fury kind of being that buffer between them and the Avengers, allowing the Avengers to also just kind of be their own people. And it's an interesting little scene here. Pete, what do you think?
Well, I love it too because of the way it connects to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Malik's participation in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? All of this was back when there was still strong hope that we would have a unified universe between the big screen and the small screen. And they were doing some actual, teasing some actual tie-ins. And so this was where the story started opening up, where we get this feeling from Powers Booth in particular that, you can't do what you're doing, Fury. You can't do it. You can have this statement to us right now. You can have your little monologue and you can put your foot down real hard, but eventually we're going to come back at this another way, right? We're going to resolve this our way, World Security Council way. And I think that's important. That's like the important anchor for the political story that comes next, not the hero save the day story, but the political story.
Well, it doesn't help either that Nick Fury in the beginning wanted control. He says hey, we now know that there's powerful forces out there. We need to control here on our universe to make sure that we're protected. And I think towards the movie, he learns that, all right, dealing with this much power and powerful creatures and gods and whatever, there is no control. You can't contain this. And he ends up changing. And that's what he does towards the end. He finally realized that he is not that powerful anymore. He thought he was, which we learn from future TV show. He is not that powerful anymore. So he has to accept the fact that there is no control when it's that much power. And security hates that. They're not for it. Mm-mm. Especially with Malik. Yeah, especially with all of his ancestors, all his ancestors being in Hydra, his father, and so on and so forth. His whole life is around control.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that essentially, they can't study the Tesseract anymore. The Tesseract is gone. It has been taken by Thor back to Asgard. And so that part of phase 2 is no more. Like, they can't use it to study stuff, but they still have a ton of weaponry that they've kind of been developing with phase 2. You'd think that they would still be kind of playing around with more of these, Tesseract powered weapons that they had been developing. But we never see any of those. Like, everything from phase 2, it all kind of ends here, right? Is there any... phase 2 never comes into the TV show.
No.
I mean, I know they use some of the Tesseract weapons at some point in there.
But it's not like mentioned because, again, after this moment, they part ways, right? We don't, they stopped playing nice with the small screen.
And there's not much stuff in the MCU, at least that I remember, that has the power similar to the Tesseract without the actual Tesseract. They can find something similar, but it's nothing going to be, it's not even close. And so they have to accept the fact that without that little glowy blue cube of wonder, they're just going to have to find something else, which they end up doing, which they find later that there's more to that scepter that we don't realize until Age of Ultron.
Yeah, right. It all is very interesting, kind of the development of all of this. And it's, but it is one of those things that often it's interesting to see which things that they thought were going to be more important. And then as they kind of continue developing the actual story thread over the phases, they're like, well, that's not as important anymore. We don't need to kind of focus on that. And they kind of have these shifts of things that are like, oh, that's not as important now. Let's not worry about it. And I suppose it's the inevitable evolution of a giant, project like the Marvel Cinematic Universe really is, where they're kind of having these little things. But even the world of comic books, that happens. It's not really anything new in all of this.
No. I mean, for them now, what's more important than the Tesseract, because they know what the Tesseract is now. What's more important is that scepter. They want that scepter. After what Loki has done, security wants that. The fact that they can control people in their own will, I mean, if anyone wants that, they do. And that's what their main focus is. If they have to lose one little thing to gain another, they'll do it.
Well, and that's, if there's one thing that would have been interesting to see at the end of this, in addition to kind of everything else we do, it would be one of those beats of the scepter. Like, that would have actually made for an interesting post-credit sequence. I mean, I love the Shawarma Palace bit, but just something with people starting to do some experimentation with the scepter would have been kind of a cool little nod. Because I think we see it in Natasha's hands, last time we were chatting with you, and then the scepter kind of disappears from the story until it pops up again in Age of Ultron. There's nothing about it in any of the films before that, I don't believe, right?
Yeah, Iron Man 3 doesn't deal with it at all.
Yeah, and then we see it again in Endgame.
Well, in like leading up to Ultron, where it becomes more popular or more of a story thread, but I don't think anything between here and there we see it.
No, because once it gets in the hands of for the Security Council, they immediately went.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's very,
they're doing their little experiments.
Exactly, and then voila, Wanda.
Yep, exactly. Well, I guess that's the end of our conversation here. Taylor, thank you so much for joining us today and over the course of the season. We certainly appreciate all these conversations with you.
Oh, thank you. I really feel like I'm riding off into the sunset on my nice little motorcycle with my brown leather jacket and my very farmer-like blue plaided shirt, at ease, like
100%.
Finish this minute.
Absolutely. Tell everybody one last time about what you're doing over on Twitch TV and where they can tune in.
Well, I do Marvel Mondays with MarvelousTay. We talk all things rumor, conspiracy theories, news, anything that can really twist your mind for a day. That's my mission. And we play a variety of games as well, and just do a lot of Marvel talking. There's not a day I don't talk about Marvel.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Check it out, everybody. We'll have the links in the show notes. Remember, if you're not seeing them in your podcatcher, just go to marvelmovieminute.com and you can find everything there. That's it for today. We will be back tomorrow to talk about minute 133 with Andrew and Joe Dorowski popping in. Should be a fun conversation with the two of them. So that's it. Pete, thanks as always.
Man, Andy, tomorrow we get that classic minute. Remember that minute where Maria Hill and Nick Fury are standing on the bow of the helicarrier? And Maria Hill yells, "I'm the king of the world!" You remember that? Oh, I can't wait. Tomorrow.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.